this is Hooked by Happenstance. I'm Kendra, and it is time for chapter 28 of Yarn Tales. Yarn Tales is my ongoing series here at Hooked by Happenstance, where I read books, I tell you a bit about them, and then I apply silly Kendra rules to my star rating for the book, and I add a segment to my reading shawl. My reading shawl is an ongoing project to make my intangible reading into a tangible, lovely object that I can reflect upon, a physical book log of sorts. Now, the intent was to begin as just one shawl, but it has really helped me to increase the amount of both time and enjoyment that I'm getting out of reading currently, and so it has grown into 2+ shawls. So right now we're talking about the books that I have read in March. We are very rapidly approaching the end of those books, and we are going to talk today about the second to last book that I read in the month. So the book today is called One Day by David Nichols. From what I can tell from other things that I've seen, this book was popular probably 4 or 5 years ago. It was pretty well known. Personally, I knew of this book, not as a book, but rather as a movie. I remember watching it, a number of years ago when we still had our Netflix subscription. I watched the movie, just, one of those random, I wonder what's on here. Oh, this looks interesting. And One Day has been a movie that really stuck with me because I thought that the director made some really interesting choices, and not interesting in a bad way, interesting in like a good and brave way. There's some parts of the story in the movie that I thought were tackled in ways that might not be super common, and it turned out that the reason that happened is because that is the way that they were tackled in the book. So once I found out there was a book of this story, I was like, oh, I really want to read it. Now, I think I did things the right way, seeing the movie, then reading the book, and then we actually rented the movie from our library as well, so I got to watch it again after reading the book. And doing book then movie, the movie was not as good, because the book is really good. The book follows two people who meet at the end of college, and their friendship or romance or like just kind of tension between them over the years. And the idea of One Day is you kind of pick up on the same day of their life at different years throughout their life. Now, the interesting thing is, it's not like some stories where, there's like a couple who will meet annually on a given day, but that's like the only day they see each other. That's not the case. These characters are in each other's lives all the time. We just drop into their story on a given day. So we get to see the progression like a little bit at a time, starting from those like entry points of the same date, which I think is an interesting way to see how much can happen in a year or how much can happen in decades of knowing a person. And the story is just really interesting. The characters in the book all are super likable, and you feel sympathy for them and empathy for them, but at the same time they do unlikable things, like all of them do, which I think is interesting, and not unlikable in the way where some books, have like terrible people doing terrible things. These are like normal feeling people having normal person problems. There's some dealing with like substance and alcohol abuse, but I feel like at a normal person level, like that you could know this person in your life. And it just was a really nice, enjoyable book about people you wanted to, like, it's not that you were rooting for them. You just wanted to see what was happening because they felt realistic, and I really, really appreciated that. So I obviously gave One Day 5 stars. It is a lovely book, and I read One Day via audiobook from Libby, which is the audiobook service from Overdrive, which I get from my county library. I have really been enjoying getting books from there. They have another David Nichols book available. I can't remember if it's an audiobook or if it's an ebook, but I know they have it available. It's called Us, which I am looking forward to reading. I'm just going to space it out a little bit. I found that when I find an author that I'm enjoying, that I want to like dole that out, not just read them all back to back, because especially with authors that haven't written a huge number of books or a huge number of books that I had access to through my library, then it's sad when they're just all gone. So like knowing it's still out there is exciting for me. So now let's take a look at the big 5-star stripe in my reading shawl. So my reading shawl has 4 different kinds of yarn. One for books that I read with my children, one for books from my Life's Library subscription where I get a new book every 6 weeks, one for audiobooks that I experience by myself, and one for physical books that I experience by myself. So this obviously is one of the audiobooks. And here is the stripe. I had kind of a set of duds, books that weren't that great through here, which has left me with a really lacy section because each color of yarn, I also have a patterned row that goes with it. So I do that, and then I do a row of textured single crochet for each star that the book receives. So like when I had books that weren't that great, I got a lot of lace with not a lot of striping between. And now I'm kind of on a run of really, really good books. So there was the pattern row with like really thick stripes of the colors, which as I'm coming toward the end of my shawl, I think is going to be really cool because number one, it's going to provide some weight toward the edge of the shawl that will pull and open up this lace in the middle. And also, I just think it gives a really nice finished edge look. So this color that I use for audiobooks is some Lolo Did It yarn. It's a one-of-a-kind color called Blarney Castle, and this is on the original sock base. I know my yarn names, I just have to remember them sometimes. So I'm really enjoying how these colors are working up. I like how they played. There's a blue in the Blarney Castle that's just playing really nice with this blue in the Lady Celine from Cattails, which I think is providing a little bit of cohesion to this overarchingly blue shawl, or that was my intent when I purchased the yarns for this shawl. My first reading shawl this year I made out of yarns that I had been gifted, and I kind of just piecemealed them all together when I had this concept in mind. But I did buy these yarns specifically for this shawl, and I kind of went with a gray, black, washed blue because I think this will be a really wearable color for me, and I'm looking forward to finishing the shawl so that I can start wearing it. So we're getting there. We're getting there. One more chapter and then we'll have a wrap up and a reveal video. If you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any of those videos, make sure you subscribe because I don't put my videos out on a regular schedule. So if you want to make sure that they pop into your sub feed as soon as they're uploaded, that is the way to do it. If you're also interested in seeing the past books that I have read this year, there are more chapters of Yarn Tales, all available in a playlist here at Hooked by Happenstance. And I will see you all next time. Bye!